So personally, did you learn most whenever you were giving free reign and failed and learned from that mistake, or when you were given lots of instruction? Which
Prob-
one do you think you learned more from?
I mean, probably a little bit of both, but definitely when I was given more free reign. Sometimes when you're allowed to just go and do things, I mean, sometimes that can be a good thing because you want to, it causes you to figure things out on your own.
Yeah.
If somebody does all the work for you all the time and tells you every little thing to do, you have a tendency to be maybe a little lazy or
Yeah.
know that they're going to always back you up. That was the great thing about those teachers, mentors that I had, the bosses I had, because they didn't just try to do everything for me. They were always there to back me up and support me, but they let me go and
Yeah.
fail.
Do you think
They
that's,
knew I would fail sometimes. They knew it ahead of time,
Yeah.
but allowing me to go and make mistakes and figure things out on my own and it was scary sometimes, especially in my younger days.
Do you think as a leader it's important to like maybe weigh how important the certain thing is? So say you're doing something that isn't high priority and it's not that important. So if he does fail, then it's not that bad, and kind of use that opportunity to like maybe let them fail and learn from that mistake because it doesn't mean very much. And say something is very important or a project that's very important, maybe micromanage them a little bit and give them a lot more instruction because that's a high priority thing, and if he messes up it's going to be bad. Do you think it's important as a leader to know like the difference between that and kind of use those as tools to help teach the employee?
Oh yeah, I mean a good leader is going to be able to manage that and figure. They're not going to ever. They never let me, or I don't ever let anybody just fall off the cliff and make such a major mistake that they're going to get terminated or cause some
Yeah.
major some costly failure or something like that. I think you have to allow people to go out there and take chances and take a few risks and with the potential of failing
Mm-hmm.
to teach them, but you definitely don't want to let them fall off the cliff either. So a good leader knows how to manage that and balance it
Mm-hmm.
in a way where it's the most effective way of teaching a new leader or a new person how to a young person how to do that. So yeah, that there's a art to doing that. You don't want to micromanage somebody.
Do
But
you think
also allow them to fail
Yeah.
sometimes too.
do you think micromanaging is always a negative thing, or do you think it can be a good thing?
Micromanaging
What is your definition of micromanaging?
somebody that pretty much does everything for you and tells you every single little thing to do and makes all the decisions for you and causes the employee to always go to that person because they know that they're going to have to make the answer anyway, or that leader, and I work with some micromanagers now, they won't let anybody, even the good people, make their own decisions.
Yeah.
And it just creates this overwhelming workload on them, and they can't get things accomplished on time because they're overwhelmed and they have to make every single little decision.
Yeah.
And I can coach them till the end of time, but their mindset, they struggle with letting things go because they want to be in control of everything.
Yeah.
And so a good leader knows how to balance that. So
Maybe like at the beginning, like when this new person just comes, maybe micromanage for a week or two, and then slowly back off and
away.
let them.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be real careful being a micromanager. I mean, obviously there's some good things about. I mean, it does help a little, but you don't want to be a micromanager in the big scheme of things.
Yeah.
It just causes problems for the person that's micromanaging and the person that they're micromanaging. So it's just not a good thing in the long run.
Yeah, that's true. So you talked about at the beginning about how young new people in the industry tend to jump from job to job and aren't staying as committed as whenever you first started. You said when you first started, people would stay for 5, 10, 20 years, but now they're just jumping from job after a month or two. Do you think any of the things we've talked about have affected that over time? Do you think expectations and like the way that people lead is different than it was back then and it is now?
I mean, good, effective managers back then are still good and effective managers today. I don't think that's really changed. I just think it's the culture of people. The culture's changed. Young people today just want more out of life and more out of their jobs. I think a good leader, like if a young person came into our company, I mean, they might have an awesome manager, somebody that is great at that might keep them longer. It might. You can't ever tell these days. They're too hard to predict. Yeah. Young people, in my opinion, want the dollar. You find people that will stay and have, that are committed to longer periods of time. But it's just the fact. Young people want to go to the next job quickly. They might stay for 2 years. I mean, when I encourage young people that are in the market now, I try to get them to stay at an organization for at least 3 years. Do whatever you can, 2.5, 3 years. Stay committed, because when we're reviewing resumes and when people are applying for jobs, I interviewed a guy yesterday. He had a job, the last 4 jobs he was there for a year or less. And he's educated, has a master's degree, and seems very smart.
Did you ask him why?
Well, I mean, there were a couple different reasons. Reasons like he got laid off at one, but then the other one was because he wanted just a different career. Then another one was he wanted more money. And then, I mean, there were 4 different ones. I mean, and I see that just about every day now.
Yeah.
And it's not uncommon. So I just try, like that young man yesterday, I just was trying to encourage him, if you could stay somewhere, I mean, even if we don't hire him, if he goes somewhere else, you look at his resume, that worries me as a company. I'm like, well, if I don't want to invest in somebody like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to put money into and train and educate, and then after a year, it's going to be gone.
Yeah.
And so it's a challenge in our world today. Anybody that's in human resources or in a leadership position could probably tell you that's been in the business world for a while, that they're always going to look at that. And so encouraging young people to try to stay committed for 3 years at least, even having to suck it up a little, unless it's a bad situation, and it's a terrible situation where, they don't need to be there.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I get it.
Do they ever talk about, or have you ever had anyone leave the company or heard about an employee leaving another company and coming to y'all because of poor leadership or lack of clarification and expectations? Have you had any experience with that?
Or somebody left another company?
Or either somebody left y'all's company because of bad leadership or came to y'all's company because their prior employer was not good?
Oh, both. Well, we've had people when you're an organization our size, you're gonna have people leave. I mean, people are people, and you're gonna have bad people or bad leaders that micromanage and don't set expectations. So people are gonna leave because of that, because of their leader not being good. My job is to try to coach our leaders not to be like that. But it's, you're going to have them over the years. We've had our share. I've had my share.
Do you think
have we hired people, though, that have come in that want to get away from that? Oh, yeah. I've hired a lot of people. They're trying to get away from jobs where the bosses that they've had and the leader they've had have been terrible. Yeah. So, yeah, it goes both ways. And, it's a fine balance of you want to find people that will stick with jobs and that won't clear expectations.
Do you think that the people that you say that you mentor and teach these qualities, for the most part, do you think they can learn and change, or are these people stuck in their ways usually?
I mean, I've seen people change and be coached. I mean, lots of people, especially younger people that are new into the business world. I've had opportunities to coach and get people to
And
change
seeing-
the way they lead.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, you definitely can coach people and teach people that.
Yeah.
There are some people though that are hard headed and don't change. I mean,
Yeah.
they just struggle with that.
Yeah. In conclusion, I'm just going to ask you to give some advice to the young, new, next generation of employers and leaders. So, what would you say is the most important thing to know? Like, what is the most important values to have as a new leader?
So, I would coach or say integrity is one thing. That's a value and a character trait that I think is super valuable. You have to have integrity. You gotta say the right things. You have to you have to walk the talk.
Mm-hmm.
I would encourage them. Don't just say things just to say them. People are listening all the time, especially young people. They listen to everything you say. If you aren't walking the talk, somebody's going to call you out. And so you have to, you can't lie. You have to do the right things. And even if you know you're going to make mistakes and fail, it's okay. It's okay to fail and make mistakes. You learn from those things and you get better because of them. But I would say have integrity, have those values that you're going to continue to do. You're going to continue to have those values throughout your career,
Yeah.
and just stay strong and walk the talk and walk the walk.
And you think, and people will trust you because of that main thing. People are going to trust you. They're going to look to you as a leader, and they're going to trust you because you're vulnerable with them, and they see how you're acting, and they want to follow you. And you think that's
no doubt.
so. It all kind of comes back to that.
Yeah, if you have integrity and you walk the talk, people are going to start to trust you, and you're going to have
care
examples,
about people.
and you show that you care, and
Yeah.
but you have to be firm too. You can't just you can't be passive and let people walk all over you and do things like that either. You have to be willing to make mistakes as well. But people, once they start trusting you, they'll continue to come back to you. And if you set clear expectations and you communicate, communication is the bit. When you want to have good employee engagement and you want to, get through to employees, communication is the key. So having clear communication, and so one of the ways you have clear communication is having expectations, setting those expectations, and then following through with them, and being honest and clear in what those things are.
Yeah.
Having integrity, and just being real with people. It's super important. They begin to trust you, and then they'll continue to come back to you.
Yeah.
Even if you have to be hard and tell them stuff that they don't want to hear.
Yeah.
People, will work harder for you when they know that you have their back. I've worked with a lot of managers that can be jerks, and they don't have integrity, and they are too firm, or they just are jerks. And people don't work very hard for them. They don't want to come back and do things for them. But if you're doing all those other things right, people they'll work so much harder for you in the long run, and they'll stick with you. They won't leave. You'll have longevity, and you'll build trust, and it just makes for a better employee. The morale's better, and it's better all the way around.
Yeah. Well, that's good stuff. I think it's time to go start tailgating. So, thank you for your time.